You're listening to episode number 42 of the Play Your Position podcast.
Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast, where your story matters and we make it count. Here's your host, Mary Lou Kaser. Let's get started.
Kick off, move the chains, and touchdowns. Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast, where we take amazing conversations straight into the end zone. I'm your host, Mary Lou Kaser, and this is the podcast that features conversations with and about people who show up and play full out each and every day. They are the people you admire: entrepreneurs, writers, artists, musicians, parents, teachers, athletes, adventurers, and their stories give us a glimpse into what it means to be human. My goal for each episode is to introduce you to fascinating new people, new ideas, and inspire you to keep playing full out in your life's work in order to make a difference. As always, details about each episode can be found over on the show notes page at my website, playyourpositionpodcast.com. Hello, everyone. We've got a great show in store for you today because of my guest, Mary Louise VanNatta. Mary Louise, are you ready for kickoff?
I'm so ready.
I love it. So Mary Louise VanNatta, CAE, has consulted with organizations and nonprofit associations since 1986 as owner of VanNatta Public Relations, and more recently, its sister company, Spire Management. As a popular social columnist, she writes the weekly Out and About with Mary Louise VanNatta for the Statesman Journal newspaper in the Capitol City of Salem, Oregon. Since 2009, she has been covering the comings and goings of those involved in nonprofit events and has also been writing a monthly business column for the Salem Business Journal since 2006. Mary Louise has been recognized with a number of awards over her career for writing, event planning, and as Rotarian of the Year. She was honored with a nomination for the Athena Award for Outstanding Women and as one of the Statesman Journal's Outstanding Women in Business. And as listeners know, we are ready to kick off the football game. You are suited up, Mary Louise, and ready to take the field. Share with us more details about the position that you're playing in your business right now and how you came to be this social columnist / expert in the comings and goings of the movers and shakers of your beautiful city, Salem, Oregon.
Well, what a fun question. The first thing I thought of when you said suited up, I started thinking of these, we're in some of the hottest days of the year here in summer.
It's true.
We're going to be sweating our way through the beginning of this kickoff here, and I hope the crowd is cheering because I have never been the most athletic person in the world. I think that's why I had to trade on talking, and instead of athletics. So, what a fun question to think about is the position I'm playing and how I got here. One thing I've noticed is there's a real role to fill in society for people that help connect and facilitate conversations with other people and help people feel comfortable. Mary Lou, have you noticed that there's a lot of people who are pretty uncomfortable in social situations?
Oh, absolutely.
And one of the things I learned early on is if you can help ease tensions and help people feel comfortable in social situations, folks gravitate to you and just have such a better time, feel better about themselves, feel better about the work they're doing, and feel inspired to do more. And I early on found that I had a skill for that even when I was really little, and I've had a chance to hone that and trade on that over my career.
So as a small child or a little girl, you looked around the world and recognized that you were able to be that magnet or that person that was able to bring people together and help them function in social situations. Is that correct?
We visited in the past, and I mentioned to you that I was born with no hip socket or hip dysplasia. which back in the 60s was quite a huge deal, and full body cast for 6 months, mostly when little kids are running around. I was sort of that sad, crippled child. My parents built me a little walker with a hole in it to put my cast through, and I'd pedal around kind of like a clam on the beach, and made everyone everyone felt so sorry for me. But reports were that I was a very happy person, and that drew people to me because I couldn't get out, and I couldn't go to them, and I couldn't play with the other kids because they were all out running around, and I was this poor body cast, my poor mother. And so I learned really early that if I could ask a lot of questions of people, if I could sing songs, if I could entertain them, if I could be someone that was people enjoyed being around, I was able to engage people where I was. People came to me instead of me having to go to them, and people seemed to enjoy that. And that was kind of a clue early on, even as early as 2 and 3 years old, that was a kind of a survival, but also a fun technique to be socially successful.
Well, absolutely. And we need people like you in the world because, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, not everyone has the natural inclination to be social, and may, based on circumstances with either their work or life, have those times when they have to be at a function, or they might actually have to get up in front of a group and present information or some kind of presentation. And having people like yourself who has a real knack for making people feel comfortable, first and foremost, and then also helping them be successful in whatever endeavor they're doing in that social situation is a really necessary role to play. And I find it interesting that circumstances in your childhood helped shape the position that you're playing as an adult and the work that you do with your business in PR, and also writing a social column for a regional newspaper that is read by thousands of people every week or every month, and giving those tips. Because even in this time of social media, which we all either love or hate or have some kind of love-hate relationship with, in between, I'm wondering, Mary Louise, what have you noticed the social media landscape has done in terms of either enhancing social interactions with people or hindering social interactions with people?
Well, if you'd asked me that question maybe 5-6 years ago, I would say that we went from a time where, let's take you all the way back to the Grange, Mary Lou, where everybody got, there was no telephones, you didn't get mail. You went to the Grange and you socialized with people and you made your plans and you knew next week you were going to be going there again. Fast forward to today where you don't have to go anywhere and you can have a really complicated social life, or so you think, on Facebook, on Twitter, on all those things. What I'm seeing now is, in the age of social media, the pendulum is starting to swing, where instead of being kind of a loner, I was called loner in your grandma's basement, thinking you have a social life, people are craving the relationships again, and social media is now becoming a springboard to the meetups, the online dating. It started becoming, the pendulum swinging the other way, where we're using social media as a tool now to have in-person relationships, which I love. This is the best time. I think this is the best use of that medium for sure.
Yes, that coming of age, social media is growing up and people are recognizing what it is for what it is. And tool, I think, is the perfect word. Each platform you reference, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, these are tools for finding your either like-minded folks that you want to go meet up with, or creating a new tribe, as they call it, or social circle, as Google likes to use the word circles. The thing that's fascinated me are along those same lines, Mary Louise, is in the beginning, social media was so much more isolated that you could sit in front of your computer all day long and interact with people on Facebook or Twitter. If that was your bent, a lot of people in the beginning shunned it because they didn't understand what it was and didn't see the value. And then we went through that dip of, then people became so enamored where it seemed like they weren't going out at all. And I agree, we're arriving into that golden age where social media is used for, I think, what its original intention was for, which is to bring people together, not separate us. And one of my favorite questions to ask my guests is about who has guided you on your journey in what you do, Mary Louise. You mentioned your mother was someone who played in the background of your life as a child and made things as easy as possible for you going through the physical challenge that you had. But who has been an instrumental coach or mentor for you as a PR person or as a social writer for the Statesman Journal?
Oh, goodness. There's been so many. Every person you touch in your life helps form and shape you. And if you can see those people and only take the best of those interactions away, I think that to take a tangent, I think some people take the negative with them when they go. I really try to take the best, even in an unpleasant situation. What did I learn? What's the best thing I can take away from that? So everybody in my life has shaped me. I really have to thank my parents tremendously. And I really mean that. That's not just throwing that out. When you think of my mom was a very traditional mom. However, she worked at night in our family business and then cared for me and my sister. And she was always a lady, and she was always exceedingly kind to every single person that she met. It was amazing to see as a child. She'd be the kind of mom that would go to the store and she had a favorite checkout person, and that person loved my mom and my mom loved that person. And she had a gift of relationship to everyone at every level. She entertained congressmen at our house, and she loved the person who sold us shoes at the junior bootery. That's the kind of watching that people light up when they saw her was really meaningful to me. And I've learned a lot from her. And also from my father, who is the longest working lobbyist in the state of Oregon. Went to work right away with him. As soon as I could stuff envelopes, I stuffed envelopes. As soon as I could do a door-to-door for politics, I was going door-to-door. As early as I could walk, I remember doing that. And his absolute dedication to ethical behavior and was always like, you always, always, always tell the truth. Your reputation is all you have at the end of the day. And I've carried that with me a long time.
It is important, and how fortunate to have parents like you did, Mary Louise, who modeled for you not just a great work ethic, but also how to treat people properly. And in this day and age, I know one of the things I see people complain about a lot online is rude behavior. That when I'm out and about, I see it as well. People all about themselves rather than thinking those small courtesies that can go a long way. Driving in traffic, for example, letting somebody merge in instead of racing up and blocking the space, or going into a store where the door still isn't automatic and holding it for somebody. And I don't think it has to do with gender. I know traditional roles, the man would extend courtesies to the woman. You use the word lady to refer to your mother. And I'm wondering if we're going to see some of that start to come back as people really reach that threshold of disgust with the way, and our smartphones now are really playing into that behavior of I call it praying. I see people praying in their cars all the time at red lights because their heads are bowed and they're looking at, they're praying to their technical device. And that has really become the most important thing. It seems, if our behavior is an indication of what we value, then it seems that what's on our smartphone is the most important thing in our life. I'm working on my own behavior about being present with people when I'm out to dinner, not having phones at the table when we're eating, putting the phone aside when you're having a conversation with somebody, because it's too easy when you're holding it to have divided attention.
Well, and now we got Apple Watch, and we're going to have Wally, from the movie Wally glasses, where we can. Yeah. But my prediction is we're going to see maybe not long term, but in the short term, see people rebelling a little bit against that you're going to be considered more professional and more, I don't want to use the classy, a lady and a gentleman, and not gender specific. When you are able to afford the time to pay attention, that will be the marker of people who are sophisticated. And so I'll be interested to see if that prediction comes true.
I like that prediction, and I will be interested to see if it does as well. My instinct tells me that it will. There'll just come that critical mass, or the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell talks about, when people are just so fed up with the perception of not mattering because the technology, the smartphone appears to be more important, that there'll be a backlash. It's already starting a little bit.
Also, the appearance that it owns you and you can't control yourself. I mean, it's like the old thing where your boyfriend gives you a pager so he can call you anytime he wants to talk to you. I mean, we are our own people, and we can, when you reach a point of professionalism, you decide. If I'm to dinner with my husband, I would like him to think that, I own my time enough where the moment someone calls, I'm not running off to, something else, or my attention's not running off to someone else, or an important client, or you, or anyone that I talk to.
That's right. And again, it's within our control, and everything is a choice. So choosing to keep your phone by your side on the table while you're dining or having coffee with someone is a conscious decision, versus sticking it away in your back pocket or in a purse or briefcase, or even leaving it behind and not having it at all.
What?
I know. I know. Shocking.
I might have tremors if that happens.
I know.
You'll have to rush me to Verizon for a rehab or something.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've talked quite a bit now about some of the big shifts that are going on in the world, and different takes on those shifts. And I want to move back to a question in the second part of my show, which is all about the challenges that we face as we're going about our days and building our businesses. And I would love for you to share a story, Mary Louise, about a time during your business career when you found yourself faced in an unpleasant situation. For example, you had a game plan and it did not go according to what was mapped out. Maybe you got sacked metaphorically, or the ball you tossed towards the end zone was intercepted, or maybe even fumbled the ball. Tell us that story, and how did you recover from temporary setback?
Oh gosh. Oh, so many. which to choose? Oh goodness. Well, probably the most significant change, I had a client that I sort of inherited, a large association, and it would probably be, in most people's minds, considered one of the more lucrative clients I had and ever will have for the time. There does become a point sometimes, and I think all of us, is we have to decide when it's time to move on, when that relationship no longer serves and you're working for the money. And I think, what is it? Dr. Phil says, if you marry for money, you earn every penny. I think that's also the same sometimes in business relationships. And when one has matured out of that leadership role, I was an executive director. There was a point where I would start getting physically sick before board meetings. And it wasn't like I got sick to my stomach. I mean, I'd have, the sniffles. I'd be throwing up. I'd be like really, really, truly sick. Like I'd go to the doctor and they would say I was sick. And one day my husband said, "Did you know you get sick before every quarterly board meeting?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Yes, you do. Did you notice that?" And so I started to have someone from the outside, and I went to some friends on some advice, and I said, I've been working with this client now for 10 years. And they said, "Oh yeah, you always complain about it. You've never liked that. You've always said how unhappy you are." And he said, "I have?" I go, "Yeah, you haven't noticed that?" And I said, "No." And so, this had been so much of my world for so long. I did not hear what I was saying and I did not see what I was doing. So I went and had some professional coaching. And I've had counseling, but professional coaching is, as you know, because you do a lot of that, is a little different. And we talked through what the risks were of leaving the most lucrative client that you have. What does that do to your staff? What does that do to your life? What kind of possibilities could it open up? And this gal walked me through a process of unraveling from this relationship. It was exceedingly painful because it was, 10, 15 years of my life. And I had identified with this group for quite a while. And one day I just resigned. And said, "Thank you for the opportunity." I teed up some appropriate colleagues that could do the work and had talked to them and kind of warned the group over a bit and stayed till the end of my contract. And that was that. And it was a very scary time because I thought, what am I going to do without this large income that I was used to? And my husband's like, "It will be okay till you open up opportunities for yourself. You can't let positive, take away negative opportunities, let positive opportunities flow in. I'm happy to say that within 3 months, I'd replaced all that income with clients I loved, and it was fine. That's kind of the end. That's sort of a short story for a very long, for a very long process with lots of crying and sadness and difficulty.
But that's an important story for your listeners to hear, and not just once, but again and again in different ways. We, throughout our careers, whether we work for somebody else or we work for ourselves, we are going to be faced with situations where we have to really drill down inside ourselves and ask, is this relationship serving me? I walked away. I know what it feels like to walk away from the golden handcuffs, so to speak. I had a great job doing what I loved with benefits and a dynamite schedule for being a mom as well. And yet the organization I was working for at the time was going through a significant transformation in a direction that I philosophically could not support because it was blatantly hypocritical. I would go in to do the work serving my audience and coming right from a board meeting and know that I was outright betraying my clients because of what I knew was going on behind the scenes. And so I had to take that leap of faith like you and walk away from guaranteed monthly income and all those benefits that we become. If you've been an employee or you've had a client for as long as you have, you get used to that. We become comfortable, and it's frightening. It's frightening. But at what point do you continue to play that, run that same play over and over and over again and continue to get those results of either getting sick like you were or not being able to sleep at night? It's going to spill into your primary relationships with not only your spouse or your children, but your friends. And life is too short. So listeners, if you're at that pivotal point in your life and you're thinking, I'm scared, I don't know if I want to let go, think about what Mary Louise just shared. Once she closed that door, within 3 months, she was able to replace all of that. And my guess is, Mary Louise, you weren't getting sick anymore and you were actually feeling happier, more satisfied, and had a spring in your step that you hadn't had for a while.
I would say so. I'd also say it wasn't easy. As you know, I think I had to work a little harder than I did because I was doing new things that I hadn't done before. However, I'd never go back. I wouldn't say that I would think I was in the same situation that you were. I had young children. It was we were working with that previous client, was the right job for the right time to learn the lessons I needed to learn. However, if I had to go back and look at the old me again, it was just, I did the right thing. I would have done it again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I'd say I would have done it earlier. I think it had to get to the point where I had to recognize that it was my choice and that I had to do it. And I didn't wait for them to. There were moments where I wish they would fire me. That's terrible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
I wish a client would fire you. That's terrible. But there were just moments where I was like, if they just let me go, that would solve all my problems and I wouldn't have to make the decision and I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. And I could be a little martyrish but I'm really glad that the world allowed me to make that decision and then do the tough work it took to rebuild that base. You got to pick the right time to jump. But I think jumping, if you're unhappy, jumping is the only option. Jumping out of the situation is the only option. People will help you. That's what I feel sad when I hear people say, oh, I'm stuck in this job and I have nowhere to go and I don't have money and I don't have any. I'm like, well, let's get into your finances and see where we can. There's no choice. Like, okay, you got people help you. There's financial planners and job coaches and your banker and, all those people that will come to the table and say, here's how you can make this work, to stay home with your kids if you want, or to get a job that's more flexible, it is possible.
It absolutely is possible. And there's more resources today than ever before. So it is a matter of making that decision. And I love how you quantified that decision. It's the right decision. not necessarily the easy decision. That's the thing, is that making that transition is not easy. There isn't just this magical, oh, I think I'm going to resign from this and go off and do this. There's going to be some struggle along there, but anybody who's gone through that will tell you, they look back and say it was the best decision they made, as hard as it may have been going through it at the time. What came as a result of that has been fabulous. And speaking of fabulous, Mary Louise, we all know that one of the best parts of every football game is when our team scores a touchdown. So I think it is time to take the ball from the red zone into the end zone. And so you are in the red zone and there are less than 30 seconds left on the clock. You are down by 4 points. It's third down and it's now or never for your team. Tell us a story about a time when you overcame this obstacle and ran the ball into the end zone for a touchdown that won the game for you.
Oh, gosh. Probably one of the things is I'm going to just package it all up in this kind of reinvention of myself. How can you turn my absolute passion for socializing into something that makes a career out of that? It just was unimaginable to me that I could, I joked with you before that when I was 4 or 5 years old, my life goal was to wear pretty dresses and go to parties. And, everyone thought that was so cute. And I just couldn't let go of that. When I got older, I wanted to wear pretty dresses, go to parties, and drink champagne. And I thought, how do you make a career out of that? Is there any possible way that I can do the most fun thing I can imagine? We're thinking of little girl, when you try on your mom's high heels and you put on her lipstick and it's all over your face and, the big hats and stuff. That was all I've ever wanted to do. That's my passion. And I was sure I could never make money at that. I went into lobbying and public relations, and there's a little bit of that, but that's mostly a desk job. You spend a lot of time on the phone and on the computer. And I did a lot of, I was someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's daughter, and did all of the things I needed to do to make life go. And when I turned 40, I thought, what's going to happen for what's the 40s to 50s going to look like? So I thought, I'm just going to reinvent myself. I'm just going to be that girl that dresses up and drinks champagne and goes to parties, and I'll just see where it takes me. So I just started going to every business event, every lecture, started learning everything I could learn about every organization. It didn't matter what it was. I went to little church groups. I went to big events. I went to celebrity dinners. I did anything that I could afford to do. And two things happened. One, the editor of the Statesman, the president publisher of the Statesman, said, I've been seeing you at all of these events and you really seem connected. What would you think about, picking up the social column from the old days, back when the Statesman was the thing? What would you think about doing that? And boy, I thought about all the reasons I should not do that. I mean, people could think it's snotty. They could be, do I write about, Mary Lou was a vision in pink as she walked through the, with her stiletto heels. What was this going to look like? And would it be a joke? And would it be embarrassing? And would people hate it? And then I'd put myself right out there with my picture of paper and I'd write stupid stuff and everyone would laugh. And so that was a really big decision to make. And it wasn't for the money, for sure. It was just, they offered me a very small stipend. And I said, sure, what the heck, why not? So I just launched into this with two caveats. Is one, I would never, ever say anything gossipy or unpleasant about someone. And two, they would give me as much feedback as possible so I could continue to improve the column. And they agreed to that. And I said, great, well, where's my photographer? And they go, oh, you're the photographer. And I said, great, okay. So I got myself a little box camera and went out and started going to nonprofit events. I wanted to also honor the community. I wanted to honor people who had sponsored and donated and worked behind the scenes at events and tried really hard to raise money for their special causes. And so that kind of started that story where I went off and have been doing that now for a number of years. And I've attended over 350 social events. I way through them.
Drunk champagne and worn pretty dresses all the way through. That is that is a touchdown, Mary Louise, because you are doing what you dreamed about as a little girl. You manifested it as an adult. and have had amazing opportunities come into your life because you made the decision to follow a dream and see what come of it. And, kudos to you for doing that. I think the lesson there is nothing is too crazy. Nothing, no idea that we have really is too crazy. It just takes a little bit of that nerve and some planning, because you did do some research about, okay, I can go to this association, I can go to this church thing, and I've got this big gala event at the Capitol building, and you were everywhere, became visible, and opportunity found you. So I think that would qualify not only as a touchdown, but definitely a key offensive strategy for moving forward in life for listeners who are wondering what they could be doing next. All my guests share different offensive strategies. Do you have a couple others some wisdom you'd like to impart about how listeners can get off the fence, or what would help them in making a big life decision from your vantage point?
Boy, all through my life, you have to have experts in your life and listen to them. You don't learn anything from talking, that is for sure. Listening to what people tell you. It was when my husband, my job coach, my friends told me what I was saying that I started to hear myself. And while I was talking, I wasn't hearing myself. It was when I was listening. And listening to what I said when I was a little girl before the world started beating up on me and telling me who I was. Oh, you're smart, you're pushy, you're short, before the world started and everyone else started telling me who I was, I told myself who I was. And so I had to listen to that person, and then start listening to your experts, your financial advisors, your parents. That doesn't mean you have to do what they say. You just have to listen and take the best out of that. And boy, I'm working on that every day, is talk less, listen more. And people don't feel heard in this world. And one of the great social tips, and I'll wrap that up, is listen to what other people have to say and smile and absorb their thoughts and hear their stories and be that blessing in their lives that they may not be getting anywhere else. It's a real joy. You'll be blessed beyond measure if you do that.
Bless others by giving them the gift of listening. Terrific advice. And Mary Louise, as we do wrap things up today, what is the best way for people to connect with you online? Where do you hang out these days?
I have a LinkedIn profile, and that's probably the best place to shoot me a message. And also I'm on Facebook quite a bit. So I do have a profile on Facebook, and I'm pretty able to respond when I can. I enjoy connecting with people and seeing pictures of their families and all that good stuff.
Fantastic. So listeners, the links to Mary Louise's LinkedIn profile and Facebook page will be posted on the show notes page over at playyourpositionpodcast.com/Mary Louise, all together, just MaryLouise. And I know she'd be thrilled if you reached out and connected with her, because that's the kind of social gal that she is. And Mary Louise, it has been so much fun for me to get to know you better, hear your stories, and the encouraging words that you have for the world about listening and social grace and following your heart.
Well, I just feel thrilled to be on your show. That's neat. It's neat that you're doing this for so many people.
Hey team, have you been thinking about writing a book but don't know where to start? Do you have a book started but keep getting stopped in the red zone? It's no secret that writing and publishing a book is one of the most exciting experiences of your life and can open many doors that remain closed to you now. And yet, at the same time, it can be one of the most challenging projects to get started, let alone finish. There are so many minefields to step through on the way to getting that first box of books delivered to your house. Frankly, those obstacles are what keep most people from ever seeing their dream come true. That's why, for a limited time, I'm offering an exclusive opportunity to connect with me privately and discuss your book project. As a published author myself, and the trusted advisor to some of today's most successful business leaders, I can help you see things about your book you can't see on your own. If this sounds like you, head on over to playyourpositionpodcast.com/book and follow the instructions on the page. What doors might a book open for you? Again, head on over to playyourpositionpodcast.com/book and follow the instructions on the page. See you there.
Thanks for listening to the Play Your Position podcast, where your story matters and we make it count at MaryLouKaiser.com.